Deho stood in front of the massive white door and tried not to think about what came next. His hands were shaking a little, so he shoved them into his pockets. The Hanxiang Cryogenics Institute was cold, always cold, like they wanted everyone to get used to the temperature before they went into the pods. He was 28 years old and completely ordinary. Average height, average looks, average everything. He had finished school with average grades and gotten an average job as a technician at a computer repair shop. Nothing about his life was special. His apartment was small, his car was old, and his bank account was almost empty. But his sister needed him. Mi-soon was only 19 and sick, with something that doctors said would cost more money than Deho could make in 5 years. The treatments were expensive, the medicine was expensive, everything was expensive. When he saw the advertisement for the cryosleep study, he knew he had to do it. 6 months in a pod, and they would pay him enough to cover a year of Mi-san's treatments. It was the only choice that made sense. A woman in a white coat opened the door. Her name tag said Dr. Yoon. She smiled at him, but it was the kind of smile people give when they feel sorry for you. Subject to 47, are you ready? She asked. Deho hated being called a number, but he nodded. Yes, I'm ready. She led him through the door and down a long hallway. The walls were white and clean, and their footsteps echoed. Other technicians walked past them carrying tablets and equipment. Nobody looked at Deho. He was just another volunteer, another person desperate enough to freeze himself for money. The chamber room was huge. Rows and rows of pods lined the walls, each one a white cylinder with a glass window. Some were already occupied. Deho could see the faces of people inside, peaceful and still like they were just sleeping. A man with gray hair, a young woman with a tattoo on her neck, all of them floating in the same dream. This is yours, Dr. Yoon said. Stopping in front of pod 2-4-7, it looked exactly like the Asters. Clean, white, empty. Waiting. Dr. Yoon explained the process again. Even though Deho had heard it 5 times already, he would put on the special suit. He would lie down in the pod. They would fill it with a gel that would protect his body. He would breathe through a mask. The drugs would make him sleep. Then the temperature would drop and drop and drop until he was frozen, preserved, held in time for exactly 6 months. We'll monitor your brain activity the whole time, she said. This study is about understanding consciousness during stasis. You won't feel anything. You won't dream. It will feel like closing your eyes and opening them a second later, and when I wake up, I get paid. Deho asked. You wake up, you get paid, she confirmed. He changed into the suit in a small room. It was tight and uncomfortable, like wearing a wetsuit made of rubber. When he came out, 2 technicians helped him into the pod. The gel was warm and thick, and it smelled like nothing at all. They fitted the mask over his face and adjusted the straps. Try to relax, one of them said. The last thing Deho saw before they closed the lid was the ceiling of the chamber room, white and bright and endless. Then the glass sealed shut and the world became muffled. He heard his own breathing loud in his ears. His heart was beating fast. He thought about Mi-soon. He thought about her smile, the way she always tried to be brave, even when she was scared. He thought about coming back in 6 months with enough money to help her. That thought made him feel better. The drugs kicked in fast. His eyelids became heavy. The world started to blur. Deho's last conscious thought was simple and small. I hope this works. Then he was gone. 3 days passed. Deho floated in his pod, frozen and dreaming of nothing, while the world continued without him. On the 3rd day, something happened that nobody expected. A vessel appeared at the edge of the solar system. It was not a human ship. It was massive, larger than Earth's moon, and it moved in ways that broke the laws of physics. Scientists detected it immediately and panicked. Governments went on high alert. Was this first contact? Was this an invasion? The vessel did nothing. It simply drifted through space, silent and strange. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it released a pulse of energy. The pulse was invisible to the human eye, but every instrument on Earth screamed warnings. The wave of exotic radiation washed over the planet like a searchlight passing through fog. Most people felt nothing. A few complained of headaches. Some electronics malfunctioned. But deep in the Hanseon Cryogenics Institute, something went very wrong. The pulse interacted with the quantum field generators that powered the cryopods. Alarms blared through the facility. Screens flickered and died. Dr. Yoon ran through the hallways, shouting orders, trying to understand what was happening. Half the pods shut down completely. Emergency protocols kicked in and started waking people up. But Pod 247 did something different. Instead of shutting down, it disconnected from the main grid and switched to its backup fusion cell. The cell was only meant to last a few days in an emergency, maybe a week at most. But something in the quantum field had changed. The pod was now self-sustaining, drawing power from a source the technicians could not identify. Dr. Yoon tried to open it manually, but the systems were locked. The pod refused every command. Inside, Daeho remained frozen, untouched by the chaos around him. A week later, the government shut down the Hanseon Cryogenics Institute. Funding was cut. The program was deemed a failure. The facility was evacuated and abandoned. Most of the pods were moved to other locations, but Pod 247 was buried in paperwork and forgotten. It sat in the empty chamber room, quiet and still, sustaining itself on impossible energy. Years became decades. The world changed. Humans made first contact with alien civilizations. Cities grew. Technology advanced. Masoon grew up, grew old, and eventually passed away, never knowing what happened to her brother. And through it all, Daeho slept. He floated in his pod for 80 years, frozen in time, his consciousness drifting in a void that should have been empty but was not. In that darkness, something vast and ancient touched his mind. Across the galaxy, someone had been searching, and finally, after 10,000 years of loneliness, she had found him. The salvage ship landed in the ruins with a heavy thud. Dust rose around its legs as the engines powered down. Gi-woo climbed out of the cockpit and stretched her back, looking at the abandoned building in front of her. The Hanseon Cryogenics Institute had been empty for almost 80 years, and it looked like it. Windows were broken. Walls were covered in vines. Nature was slowly taking back what humans had left behind. "Looks promising," said Taemin, her second in command. He was young and always optimistic about salvage runs. "Old tech facility. Might have some quantum cores we can sell." Ji-woo grunted. She'd been doing this job for 15 years and learned not to get her hopes up. Most abandoned facilities had already been picked clean by other salvage teams. But the scanners had detected a power signature coming from deep inside the building. And power meant something. Valuable might still be running. They cut through the front door with a plasma torch and made their way inside. The hallways were dark and silent except for the sound of their boots on the dusty floor. Emergency lights flickered weakly overhead, barely giving any light. Ji-woo kept her hand on her weapon, just in case. You never knew what you might find in places like this. Sometimes squatters, sometimes old security systems that still thought they had something to protect. The power signature led them down 3 levels into the old chamber room. When they forced open the doors, Gi-woo stopped and stared. Rows of empty pods lined the walls, all of them dark and dead. All except one. Pod 247 was still running. Lights blinked steadily on its control panel. Through the glass window, Ji-woo could see a person inside. A man, young, floating in preservation gel. He looked like he was just sleeping. By the void, Taemin whispered. "Is that a person?" Ji-woo moved closer and checked the pod's display. "He's alive. The system says he's been in stasis for 80 years. "That's impossible," Taemin said. "These old models could only sustain life for 6 months maximum. The power cells should have died decades ago. The readings did not lie. The man was alive, perfectly preserved, his vital signs stable." Ji-woo had seen a lot of strange things in her career, but this was different. This was wrong in a way that made her skin crawl. "We need to wake him up," she said. "Are you crazy?" "We should call the authorities and wait 3 days for them to show up." Look at him. If we don't get him out now, who knows what might happen. Giwu started entering commands into the pod's control panel. Besides, finders keepers. If we save his life, maybe he'll be grateful. The pod took 20 minutes to begin its wake-up sequence. The gel drained slowly. The temperature rose degree by degree. Inside, the man's eyes started to move under his eyelids. His fingers twitched. Then finally, his eyes opened. Daeho gasped and sat up, coughing and confused. He pulled the mask off his face and looked around wildly. What? What happened? Where's Dr. Yoon? Easy, Giwu said, holding up her hands. You're safe. You've been in that pod a long time? A very long time. Took hours to explain everything to Daeho. He did not believe them at first. 80 years? Impossible. But Giwu showed him. The date on her datapad. She showed him news articles. She showed him pictures of the world outside, cities he did not recognize, technology he had never seen. Mi-Sun was gone. Everyone he knew was gone. The world had moved on without him. Daeho sat on the floor of the chamber room and put his head in his hands. He did not cry. He just sat there, silent and small. Trying to understand that his entire life had been erased while he slept, Jae-wall felt bad for him, but she had a job to do. She called for a medical team to meet them at the nearest hospital. While they waited, something strange happened. Daeho looked down at his arms and frowned. What is this? He asked. Patterns were appearing on his skin. They glowed faintly, swirling lines of light that moved and shifted like living things. The patterns were beautiful and wrong at the same time, colors that should not exist. Gu stepped back. I've never seen anything like that. The medical team arrived an hour later and took Daeho to Seoul Medical Center, the biggest hospital in the region. Doctors ran every test they could think of. Blood tests, brain scans, genetic sequencing. The results made no sense. His DNA has been altered, Dr. Hansel said, staring at his screen with wide eyes. Not just altered, rewritten at a quantum level. This is technology we don't have. This is technology nobody has. What does it mean? Daeho asked. He was sitting on an examination table, still wearing a hospital gown. The glowing patterns on his skin had faded, but not disappeared. I don't know, the doctor admitted. But these markings are not random. They're organized. They look like writing. He brought in linguists and xenologists to study the patterns. Earth had been in contact with dozens of alien species for over 50 years now, and some of those experts knew hundreds of alien languages, but none of them recognized the markings on Daeho's skin. 3 weeks passed. Daeho stayed in the hospital, becoming more and more frustrated. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand what had happened to him, but nobody could explain it. Then a visitor arrived. Her name was Tarim, and she was not human. She was Veltharian, a species known for their scholarly work and long memories. She was tall and thin, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed faintly blue. She examined Daeho's markings for less than a minute before she gasped. This is ancient axiom, she said. The first language, the dead language of the first civilization. Everyone in the room went silent. The first civilization was a legend, a mystery that haunted the galaxy. Millions of years ago, someone had built impossible things and seeded technology across thousands of worlds. Then they vanished. Nobody knew what happened to them. Nobody had seen their language written in over 10,000 years. What does it say? Daeho asked quietly. Tarim looked at him with something like pity. It is a mark of ownership. Claim. It says you have been chosen as the consort of the eternal sovereign of the Void Throne. The room erupted in chaos. Doctors shouted questions. Security guards moved closer. Daeho just sat there, numb, trying to process what he had just heard. Who is the eternal sovereign? Giwu asked from the doorway. She had stayed close to Daeho since finding him, feeling responsible somehow. Tarim turned to her. If the legends are true, she is the last of the first civilization, the queen of the Axiom Remnant, the ruler of 1,000,000 worlds at the galaxy's core. She looked back at Daeho, and apparently she has chosen you. Daeho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. This has to be a mistake. I'm nobody. I was a technician at a computer repair shop. Why would anyone choose me? I do not know, Tarim said honestly. But this mark cannot be faked. And if she truly has chosen you, then you are no longer nobody. You are the most important human in the galaxy. That night, alarms started blaring across Earth's defense network. Multiple alien vessels had appeared in orbit, all of them demanding to speak with the human government. Some wanted to study Deo. Some wanted to protect him. Some wanted to take him. The galaxy had noticed, and Deho's life would never be ordinary again. The conference room was filled with people arguing. Human officials from Earth's government sat on one side of the long table. Representatives from the Galactic congregation sat on the other side. And Deho sat in the middle, feeling like a piece of meat being fought over by hungry dogs. He is a human citizen, Ambassador Park was saying loudly. He has rights. You cannot simply take him. The mark supersedes your local laws, replied the congregation's speaker. A being that looked like a floating crystal with too many eyes. This is a matter of galactic importance. The Axiom remnant has not made contact with the congregation in 3,000 years. If their queen has truly chosen this human, we must understand why. You mean you want to study him like a lab rat? Jiwoo said from where she stood by the wall. She had refused to leave Deho's side, much to the annoyance of the officials. The crystal being turned its eyes toward her. Crude, but not entirely inaccurate. Yes, we wish to understand the mechanism of the mark, for the benefit of all species. I'm sitting right here, Deho said quietly. You could try asking me what I want. Everyone stopped talking and looked at him. Deho took a breath. In the 3 weeks since waking up, he had learned a lot about the new world. Earth was no longer alone. Humans had joined something called the Galactic Congregation, a loose alliance of hundreds of species. They traded, they talked, they shared technology. But humans were small players in this new galaxy, barely noticed by the older civilizations. I don't know what any of this means, Deho continued. I don't know who this queen is or why she chose me. But I know I'm tired of being treated like I'm not a person. So here's what I want. I want answers. Real answers. And until I get them, I'm not going anywhere with anyone. Before anyone could respond, the lights in the room flickered. Then every screen on the wall lit up at once, showing the same image. A black void filled with stars, something massive moving through it. A ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It was 10 kilometers long, made of metal that looked like liquid mercury, constantly shifting and flowing. It did not look built. It looked grown. Every defense satellite immediately locked onto it, but no one gave the order to fire. Everyone just stared. That's an Axiom vessel, the crystal being whispered. The Twilight Meridian, flagship of the Void Throne. Communication request came through. Ambassador Park accepted it with shaking hands. The screens changed to show the interior of a ship that did not make sense. The walls moved like they were breathing. The geometry was wrong, angles that should not exist, and in the center stood a woman who looked human. She had long black hair and wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Her eyes were kind but ancient, impossibly old. My name is Hae-won, she said in perfect Korean. I come as envoy of Queen Velashra, eternal sovereign of the Void Throne, last of the first, keeper of the ancient ways. I am here to speak with the one who has been marked. Deho stood up slowly. That would be me, Hae-won smiled. Hello, Deho. I know you have many questions. I am here to provide answers. They met in person an hour later in a private room with just Deho Jiwoo, Ambassador Park, and Hae-won. Up close, Deho could see that Hae-won looked human but was not entirely human anymore. Her skin had a faint shimmer to it. Her movements were too graceful, too precise. I was human once, Hae-won said, noticing his stare. 300 years ago, I joined the Axiom willingly and was transformed. It is the greatest gift one can receive. You don't look 300 years old, Jiwoo said. The Axiom do not age as you understand it. Time touches us differently. Hae-won turned to Deho. I know this is overwhelming. Let me explain what has happened to you. She told them about the queen. Valencia was the last pure-blooded descendant of the first civilization, the builders who had shaped the galaxy millions of years ago. She ruled the Axiom Remnant, an empire of 1,000,000 worlds hidden in the galactic core. For 10,000 years, she had searched for something that no one else could give her. A partner, an equal, someone whose consciousness could match her own. The Axiom are bound by ancient laws, HFY explained. The Queen cannot simply choose anyone. She must find someone who resonates with her at a quantum level. Someone whose genetic and psychic signature aligns with the old protocols. And that's me? Deho asked, disbelieving. A computer technician from Earth. 80 years ago, the Queen sent out a scanning pulse across the galaxy. It tested 400 billion beings across thousands of worlds. Every sapient mind was touched by that pulse. HFY looked at him seriously. Only one resonated. Only one consciousness matched the pattern she needed. You, Deho. While you were in cryosleep, your mind was in a unique state, suspended, dreaming, open, and in that state you touched her mind across the void of space. Deho felt dizzy. He sat down. I don't remember any of that. Not consciously, no. But your deeper self remembers. The quantum patterns in your DNA are proof. The Queen has marked you as her chosen consort. This is not a request or a demand. It is a recognition of what already exists. So what happens now? Ambassador Park asked nervously. That is Deho's choice, HFY said. He can refuse the mark. I can remove it, though the process would be painful and there would be consequences. Many factions would still seek him out, hoping to study him or use him for their own purposes. He would spend his life as a curiosity, forever looking over his shoulder. Or, Deho prompted, where he can accept the summoning. Come with me to the galactic core. Meet Queen Velashira. Learn what it means to be chosen by the last of the first civilization. HFY's expression softened. I will not lie to you. The path is dangerous. There are those within the Axiom who do not want a human as their future consort king. But you would be protected. You would be honored. And you would have the chance to understand what all of this means. Deho was quiet for a long time. He thought about Masoon, gone for decades. He thought about his old life, erased by time. He thought about the fact that he had nothing left on Earth except memories of a world that no longer existed. If I go, he said slowly, can I come back? If you wish, HFY said. Though I suspect that once you see what awaits you, you will not want to. Gu stepped forward. I don't like this. You're asking him to go with you to the other side of the galaxy, based on the word of a queen he's never met. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? You don't, HFY said simply. You must trust. And Deho must choose. Deho looked down at his hands. The glowing patterns were visible again, swirling beneath his skin like living things. He had spent his whole life being nobody, average, unremarkable. And now, someone was telling him he was special, chosen, important. It should have felt good. Instead, it just felt scary. But what other choice did he have? I'll go, Deho said quietly. I'll meet the Queen. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. HFY bowed deeply. That is all we ask. 2 days later, Deho boarded the Twilight Meridian. Gu came with him, insisting that someone from Earth should be there to watch his back. The ship rose from the planet's surface without sound or fire, simply lifting into the sky as if gravity meant nothing to it, as Earth grew smaller behind them. Deho looked out the window and wondered what kind of person chooses a stranger from across the galaxy to be their partner. What kind of loneliness drives someone to search for 10,000 years? He supposed he was about to find out. The Twilight Meridian was like no ship Deho had ever imagined. The walls breathed. The corridors changed shape when no one was looking. Sometimes he would walk through a doorway and end up somewhere completely different than where he intended to go, as if the ship itself decided where he needed to be. The ship is alive. HFY explained during his first day aboard. Not alive like you or me, but conscious in its own way. It is grown from living metal, bonded with quantum intelligence. It will learn your patterns, your preferences. Eventually, it will anticipate your needs before you know them yourself. That's disturbing, Ju-Wu muttered. She had been on edge since boarding, her hand never far from her weapon. She did not trust any of this. The crew was small, only about 20 beings, and most of them were not human. There were Veltharians like Tarim, beings made of crystal light, others that looked like walking plants. All of them treated Daeho with a strange mixture of respect and curiosity. He was the marked one, the chosen. They were not sure what to make of him. One crew member stood out. His name was Kyongsu, and he was human. Or he had been once. Like Haewon, he had joined the Axiom and been transformed. He was tall and powerfully built, with silver patterns traced across his skin that glowed faintly in the dark. He spoke little and watched everything. Kwangsu is your bodyguard, Haewon told Daeho. Where you go, he goes. His only purpose is to keep you safe. Daeho asked. "'Cause not everyone wants you to reach the queen," Kungsu said. His voice was deep and calm. "There are factions within the Axiom who see you as a threat. A human consort would change the balance of power. Some will try to stop that from happening by killing me. If necessary." Daeho learned quickly that Kongzu was not joking. The journey to the galactic core would take months, even at faster-than-light speeds. The ship would have to pass through dozens of territories, some friendly, some neutral, some hostile. And word had already spread across the galaxy that the Void, Throne's chosen, was traveling to meet his queen. The training began the next day. Haewon taught Daeho about Axiom culture, their history, their customs. He learned that the Axiom valued knowledge above all else, that they saw the universe as a puzzle to be understood rather than a resource to be exploited. He learned their formal greetings, their social hierarchies, the proper way to address the queen when he finally met her, but it was the other changes that frightened him. The quantum mark was spreading through his body, rewriting him from the inside out. His reflexes became faster. His senses became sharper. He could see colors he had never noticed before, hear sounds at frequencies that should have been impossible. And sometimes, when he touched the ship's walls, he could feel its thoughts, alien and vast. "You are becoming more than human," Haewon said when he told her about the changes. "The mark is not just a symbol. It is a transformation. By the time you reach the queen, you will be ready to stand beside her." "What if I don't want to be more than human?" Daeho asked. Haewon looked at him sadly. "Then you should have refused the mark when you had the chance. The process cannot be stopped now. Only completed." 3 weeks into the journey, the first assassination attempt happened. Daeho was in his quarters, trying to sleep, when Kyung-soo burst through the door. "Get up. Move now." Daeho barely had time to react before an explosion rocked the ship. The walls screamed, and somewhere in the distance, alarms began to wail. Kwangsu grabbed Daeho and dragged him into the corridor, moving with impossible speed. Behind them, something crashed through the wall of Daeho's room. He caught a glimpse of a figure in dark armor before Kyongsu shoved him around a corner. "What's happening?" Daeho gasped. "Boarding party." They breached the hull. Kyong's weapon appeared in his hand, a blade made of light and shadow. "Stay behind me." The fight was brutal and fast. 3 attackers in black armor came around the corner, weapons raised. Kung-Su moved like water, his blade cutting through them before they could fire. Daeho pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding, watching his bodyguard kill 3 beings in less than 5 seconds. When it was over, Kunshu checked the bodies. "Mercenaries," he said. "Hired by someone who doesn't want you to reach the core." The second attempt came a month later, more subtle. Someone poisoned Daeho's food. He felt it immediately, a burning in his stomach that spread through his body like fire. But instead of dying, something inside him woke up. The quantum patterns in his DNA activated, breaking down the poison, turning it into harmless waste. Daeho collapsed in the dining hall, gasping and shaking. But alive. Haewon found the poisoner, a Veltharian crew member who had been bribed. She executed them without hesitation. "Betrayal aboard this ship is death," she said coldly. "There will be no more warnings." The third attempt was the worst. The ship stopped to refuel at a neutral station, and Daeho convinced Kyung-soo to let him walk around. He wanted to feel normal, just for an hour. To see something other than the inside of the Twilight Meridian. They were in the market district when it happened. A crowd surrounded them. Too many people, too close. Kyung-soo sensed danger a second too late. Someone fired a weapon, point blank, aimed at Daeho's chest. Time seemed to slow down. Daeho saw the blast coming, saw Kyung-soo turning to block it, and something inside him reacted without thought. His hand came up, and light erupted from his palm. Pure quantum energy, channeled through the mark on his skin. The blast from the assassin's weapon met Daeho's light and vanished, consumed by power that should not have been possible. The assassin fired again. Daeho's other hand rose, and more light poured out. The assassin and 6 others around him simply ceased to exist. Vaporized by a force that Daeho did not understand and had not meant to use. The market fell silent. Everyone stared at him. Daeho looked down at his hands, still glowing with fading light, and felt sick. What did I just do? He whispered. Kyun-soo pulled him away quickly back to the ship. Haewon was waiting, and she looked at Daeho with something like awe. You access to the Axiom weaponry, she said. The mark has given you the ability to interface with quantum technology, to channel power directly. I killed them, Daeho said. His hands were shaking. I didn't mean to. It just happened. You defended yourself, Haewon corrected. And you proved something important. You are not helpless. The transformation is working. That night, Jiwoo found Daeho sitting alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. You okay? She asked. No, Daeho said honestly. I'm not okay. I'm turning into something else. Something I don't recognize. Gyu sat down beside him. You're still you. Changed. Yeah. But still, you... Don't forget that. How can I not forget? Daeho asked. Every day, I'm less human. Every day I can do things I shouldn't be able to do. By the time we reach the Queen, what will be left of Daeho, the technician? That's up to you, Jiwoo said. Power doesn't erase who you are. It just gives you more choices. 2 months later, they finally reached Throne's Edge. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and the view outside took Daeho's breath away. They were orbiting a black hole, a massive void in space surrounded by a disk of glowing matter. But around the black hole, hanging in space like a crown, was a structure so large that Daeho's mind struggled to process it. It was the size of a solar system, made of metal and light and things that defied description. Billions of lights dotted its surface, cities and stations and living spaces for trillions of beings. At its heart, directly above the black hole's event horizon, was a palace that looked like it was made from frozen starlight. Welcome to the Void Palace, Haewon said softly. Home of Queen Velashara. Your destination. Your future. Daeho could only stare. Somewhere in that impossible structure, the Queen was waiting. The being who had chosen him across the vastness of space and time, and he was terrified. The Void Palace was beyond anything Daeho had imagined. The Twilight Meridian docked at one of countless ports, and from there they traveled inward through corridors that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Gi-woo stayed close to him, her eyes wide as she tried to understand the geometry of the place. Even Kyung-soo, who had seen the palace before, moved with careful respect. The palace was built by the first civilization at the height of their power, Haewon explained as they walked. It exists partially outside normal space-time. What you see is only a fraction of what is actually here. They passed beings of 1,000 different species, all going about their business in the palace. Some were humanoid, some were not. Some looked like clouds of energy. Some looked like living mathematics. All of them stopped to stare when they saw Daeho and the mark glowing on his skin. The walk took hours, moving deeper and deeper into the palace. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors that seemed to be made from solid darkness. 2 guards stood on either side, beings that looked like they were carved from white stone, 10 feet tall, and carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained power. The queen is waiting, Hei-Wan said. She looked at Daeho seriously. From here, you go alone. Not even I can accompany you into the throne room. This meeting is between you and her. Daeho's mouth went dry. What do I say to her? Say what is in your heart. She will know if you lie. The axiom cannot be deceived. Hei-Wan smiled gently. You have traveled so far, Daeho. Do not lose courage now. Jiwoo grabbed his arm. If anything feels wrong, you run. You understand? I don't care if she's a queen. You don't owe her anything. Daeho nodded, not trusting his voice. The doors opened silently, revealing darkness beyond. He took a breath and stepped through. The throne room was impossible. It was vast, stretching into infinity in every direction, but also felt intimate and close. The floor was made of something that looked like frozen starlight. The ceiling was the void itself, filled with galaxies that swirled and turned. And at the center of it all was a throne that seemed to be carved from the fabric of reality. On the throne sat Queen Vera. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Her form shifted constantly, one moment appearing human with pale skin and dark hair, the next moment becoming something vast and incomprehensible, a being of pure light and shadow. Her eyes were ancient, containing depths that Daeho could not fathom. She wore robes that seemed to be made from the night sky, with stars that actually twinkled and moved. Lo Daeho, she said, and her voice was like music and thunder at the same time. I have waited so long to meet you. Ho tried to speak, but no words came out. He stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by her presence. She was power personified. She was everything, and he was nothing. Velashira rose from her throne and walked toward him. With each step, she became more human, more comprehensible. By the time she reached him, she looked like a woman, tall and elegant, with kind eyes that held infinite sadness. Do not be afraid, she said softly. I know what you see when you look at me, but I promise you I am not what you fear. What are you? Daeho managed to ask. I am old, Velashira said. I am the last of my kind. I have lived for 10,000 years, watching empires rise and fall, seeing entire civilizations born and die. I have all the power anyone could want. I rule 1,000,000 worlds. I can shape reality with a thought. She looked at him with those ancient, sad eyes. And I am so very, very lonely. Daeho did not know what to say to that. What do you say to someone who has lived for 10,000 years? Why me? He finally asked. I'm nobody. I'm just a human who got frozen by accident. Why choose me? Velashira smiled, and for a moment she looked young. Do you remember your dreams while you were in stasis? Daeho frowned. I thought I didn't dream. They told me I wouldn't. Your conscious mind did not dream, but your deeper self, your quantum consciousness, that dreamed. And those dreams reached across the galaxy to touch mine. She reached out and took his hand gently. For 80 years, Daeho, we shared consciousness. Your mind, suspended in time, drifting in the void, was open in a way no waking mind ever is. And I felt you. I felt your kindness, your determination to save your sister, your quiet strength. You did not know I was there, but you were not afraid of me. That doesn't make sense, Daeho said. It does not have to make sense. It simply is. Velasha squeezed his hand. I have met millions of beings in my long life. All of them fear me or worship me or want something from me. But you, in your dreams, you simply existed beside me. You kept me company without knowing it. Do you understand how rare that is? How precious. Daeho looked down at their joined hands. So you marked me because I was nice to you in dreams I don't remember. I marked you because for the first time in 10,000 years I felt less alone. Velashira's voice cracked slightly. And yes, I know how selfish that sounds. I pulled you from your life, from your time, from everything you knew. I am sorry for that. But I am not sorry for finding you. Before Daeho could respond, alarms began to wail throughout the palace. The floor shook. Velashira's eyes widened, and her form flickered, becoming more alien, more dangerous. What is happening? Daeho asked. Betrayal, Velashira said, her voice now cold and hard. Someone has attacked the palace. The doors to the throne room burst open. Soldiers poured in, hundreds of them, all wearing the silver armor of the Axiom military. Leading them was a woman with short hair and eyes like ice. She pointed a weapon at Velashira. "Forgive me, my queen," the woman said, "but I cannot let this continue. I am General Sora of the Axiom Defense Fleet, and I am taking control of the Void Throne." Velashira did not move. "Sora, I trusted you. I gave you command of my armies. I have served faithfully for 300 years, Sora said. But this, choosing a human as your consort, making him our future king, that I cannot allow. The Axiom are the descendants of the first civilization. We do not mix our blood with primitives." "You call me primitive?" Deho said, surprised at his own anger. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Sora said. "You are weak. You are simple. You have no understanding of what it means to rule a galactic empire. The Queen has made a mistake, blinded by her loneliness. I will correct that mistake." The soldiers raised their weapons. Velashira's form exploded with light, becoming vast and terrible. "You dare threaten me in my own palace?" "I dare because I must," Sora said, and pressed a button on her wrist. The throne room filled with a field of energy that made Deho's skin burn. Velashira screamed, a sound that tore through reality. She collapsed to one knee, her power suddenly suppressed. "Quantum dampener," Sora said. "It took me 50 years to build one strong enough to contain you. You are powerful, my queen, but you can be controlled." She gestured to her soldiers. "Take the human. Kill him quickly." Deho's mind raced. He looked at Velashira, struggling against the dampening field. He looked at the soldiers advancing toward him, and he made a choice. He could run. He could let them take him. Or he could fight. The mark on his skin flared to life, burning brighter than it ever had before. Power flooded through him, the quantum energy that Hay-One had told him about. He did not fully understand it, but he did not need to. He just needed to act. When the first soldier reached him, Deho's hand came up and energy poured out. Not to kill this time, but to push, to defend. The soldier flew backward, crashing into others. More came, and Deho moved without thinking, his transformed reflexes taking over. He was not a fighter, had never been a fighter, but the power inside him knew what to do, you see. Sora shouted. "He uses our technology like a weapon. He has no respect for what he has been given." "He has every right," Velashira gasped, still fighting the dampening field. "He is mine." Deho reached her and put his hand on her shoulder. The moment they touched, something changed. The power inside him connected with the power inside her, and together they pushed back against the dampening field. It was like completing a circuit, two halves becoming whole. The field shattered. Velashira rose to her full height, and this time she was not alone. Deho stood beside her, the combined power filling the throne room with light so bright that Sora's soldiers had to look away. "You wanted to see what we are together?" Velashira said, her voice like thunder. "Then see." The battle was over in seconds. The soldiers who did not flee were disabled by waves of quantum energy. Sora tried to run, but Velashira caught her with a thought, lifting her into the air. "You served me well for 300 years, Velashira said sadly. But fear has corrupted you. Fear of change, fear of the